Hi, this is Janos, it's Real World Audio, and we are at episode number 4 of the WinISD tutorial and looking at the Hiraga LePetit cabinet. We are modeling it in WinISD, looking at the output. So, where we left off at the third episode, the one before this, was at the output of the port, and I was saying that you blow your woofer when you want it to reproduce frequencies which are occurring where your port is closing. So here we are seeing the gain of the port. This is the setting, the rear port gain, and that's where the gain is very strong, centered around the tuning frequency of the port. And as you move away from that frequency, either higher or lower, the port is closing, and it means that it does not let the air through the port. So the port in a loudspeaker cabinet, even though you can see through it, you can blow air into the port, but the sound waves can only go through it efficiently if they are the same length as the tuning frequency. And the more different they are, the less they can go through. And you see, at 100 Hertz, very, very few things go through the port from the inside of the cabinet. And if you would look at 500 Hertz, nothing. The cabinet is virtually totally shut at 500 Hertz. So from the port, you are not getting anything at 500 Hertz. So why is it then that we always read about port resonances at like 500 Hertz or maybe even a kilohertz or 2 kilohertz? That's because it's not the music content that's coming from the speakers going through the port at the kilohertz frequency, but the resonances, reflections created inside the port that you hear as the port coloration, port resonances. So let's now see, this is where WinISD will help us, is to tell us how safe we are playing deep bass with a loudspeaker cabinet. And to tell about that, we go to the cone excursion. So here we choose cone excursion, bingo. And remember the X-max value, that's the red line. It shows that if you are above the red line, it means that your voice coil is moving out from the voice coil gap. So what does it mean? Like, let's say this is your voice coil gap. So it means that that's where the magnetic field strength is at maximum for your loudspeaker driver, and the voice coil, when it moves back and forth, so as your driver goes back and forth, it is within the voice coil gap. And this is, it means that the movement it can make, like going from here to here, that's 0.4 millimeter. And the more power you drive your loudspeaker with, the bigger the movement is. And at one point, it's going to get 0.4 millimeter. And as you see, depending on the frequencies, driven at the same power level, you get very different cone excursions. So the cone, as it's moving forward, if you hit it with, let's say, at the signal, let's go here at the signal, let's click on that. And here you can say system input power 1 watt. So if we are using 1 watt, then this is how much your cone will move. So this is how much the voice coil will move in its place. And until the movement is below the red line, you are getting high fidelity output because it's under the total control of the magnetic field of the magnet inside the motor. And the more it starts to leave the safety of the voice of the magnet of the voice coil gap, then it's going to have less magnetic field strength, being able to draw it back. So you are going to have more and more distortion. And so basically, what does that tell you? That tells you to pick your driver that has and look at where is that red line, where is that X max. So when you look at let's see where here we are, this is the driver's data sheet, and when you look here where we will find X max, you see X max 0.35 millimeter. So it tells you that this, if your driver cone can move 0.35 millimeter before it will start losing full control over the cone. And when we are going back here, you see that if we use it with 1 watt, then it will happen roughly about 240 hertz or so. So above that frequency, the voice coil, the driver cone, will be at full control at 1 watt output. And basically when we go SPL value, what is the SPL? So we are looking at your speakers singing about 90 dB loud, and then above 240 hertz it will be high fidelity, very low distortion. But what about the frequency range below that? You see it starts to go out of that range, and here it reaches the maximum, almost 2 millimeters, like really out of the safety at 55 hertz. And look at that, then it starts diminishing again. So it's going to have less distortion at 43 hertz than it has at 55 hertz. What's going on? That's because of the port. It's because at this frequency, this is when the port is open, so you can see that valley there. That's the result of the port. So that's because the energy can exit through the port and your cone has to move less. So basically your loudspeaker cone moves back and forth, and the deeper signal it is, the more it has to move to reproduce the same watt output signal. However, as it starts getting close to the port tuning frequency, it has to work less to put out 1 watt. And when the port starts closing, again the range starts increasing again, and you need bigger and bigger cone movement. And as you see here, it gets just really hard, like 3.5 millimeter voice coil movement. So that's really big, and then it's really leaving the safety of the voice coil. And when we look at Jean Hiraga's measurement, look here where it is. I just have to find, I think maybe we have to scroll lower. I was scrolling wrong direction. He will have distortion measurements published. Oh, there it is. You see? Look. That's the frequency range, and here I think that's like 20 hertz, 30 hertz, and we're going higher, like what's that, 200 hertz, 20 kilohertz. And you see that the distortion measurements starts drastically rising with the frequency, and this is the third harmonic, and the lower is the second harmonic. And you see the second harmonic distortion around the port frequencies is just drastically drops. And you see that's the port tuning frequency at 40 hertz, and both third and second harmonic distortion is just plummeting to a super duper low level, as if the output was that high. Look at that, 40 hertz versus what's that, 300 hertz, about the same level of distortion. Let's look, 40 hertz, 300 hertz. Wow, it's not the same cone excursion, but you see at 40 hertz we have much lower cone excursion than anywhere here. So to go, let's see, we have 1.3 millimeter cone excursion, and the line intersects right here at 96 hertz. So basically about 100 hertz the cone works just as hard as working at 40 hertz. So for LePetit, to reproduce a 40 hertz note. It's a walk in the park. It has to work as hard as if it's just reproducing 100 hertz. And that's why this little speaker can give you such impressive deep bass, because it is at home reproducing that really low frequency. I just want to find like a nice shot, which I don't find here. So geez, where was I? Here they are. So that's how they look like. And even though they are just 10 centimeter diameter driver, which means the basket is 10 centimeter, the driver itself is more like a 6-7 centimeter diameter paper cone. It's like a 3-inch driver in a 4-inch basket. That's what it is. But it's comfy playing at 40 hertz. And that's because of the big size of the cabinet. Well, if 30-liter size is big for you, that's big. Compared to the driver size, it's relatively big. But as you know, that's the size that you need for getting a speaker down to 40 hertz. Even if you put a big driver in it, you still need about 30 liters, 35, 40 liters to play to that region. So what's the difference? Why we are using these tiny drivers? Because as you have seen, when we come back here to the Excursion, well, even at 1 watt, we are reaching, we have actually left the safety of the low distortion zone. So let's just adjust the scale here, because we are seeing very little. So cone Excursion, let's just give it a 4 millimeter peak. Okay, let's just give 4 millimeter. So now we have a better viewing ability of what's going on. So let's drop the output power from 1 watt to 0.5 watt. What's happening? We are still pretty much outside the safety of the underhung Excursion. So now if we drop to 0.1 watt, this is where at 40 hertz, basically we got back to the safety of keeping the voice coil in the full control zone. So if you are listening to like a double bass playing and you listen to 0.1 watt volume, then it will be crystal clear and perfectly under control. Or of course this region will be a little bit off. So let's just take it down a little bit more, 0.07 watt output. Now we are kind of getting close to it. So what's the SPL that we are getting here? We are very lowish, so the average SPL the speaker is playing is at 79 dB. That's still kind of loudish, right? So at still a decent volume, we are playing at a decent volume. Of course, it's not enough for you if you think that anything below under 110 dB is worthless. So if you listen to those kinds of volumes where you want to feel like you are at a Metallica concert every day, this is of course not going to cut your mustard. But if you are like any sane person listening in a normal apartment, even this is a pretty strong volume, and you don't want to listen louder than that in most days, unless you have special needs. Of course, this loudspeaker is not for those of special needs. You need special speakers for that at special prices. But here, this is a normal speaker for a very modest price that will give crystal clear bass at 78 dB volume. But what does it mean, crystal clear bass? And why wouldn't you get a monster huge loudspeaker with a crazy subwoofer? Wouldn't it give you as good bass or even better? Of course, it would give you a more powerful sounding bass, but would that bass be so clear, so crisp, and would it have a upper harmonic content that is coherent and lightning fast as these? Never. Why? Look, let's just look what these little cones are. Let's go back to the datasheet and let's just scroll up. Does it list here? QMS. It does not spell out the weight of the cone, but it's about Jean Hiraga, the QMS, the moving Q. That's a little bit hinting at it, but Jean Hiraga in his article he does list where did he list? Here, 2.9 grams or 2.7 grams. So 2.7 gram for the FE103 and 2.9 gram of the 103 sigma version. And when you look QMS, that's the moving Q, the mass of the cone. So that's 2.9 grams. So you can guess it from there. But most datasheets spell it out for you, the cone mass. What's the mass of the cone? If you don't find it, just look for that value. That will tell you the same thing. So basically what we have here is an ultra lightweight cone, and when that light weight is generating the frequencies that lighter weight can accelerate much faster than a heavier weight. I have a bunch of videos in the older days that explore the relationship of the weight and energy and how the sound is reproduced. But basically, if you can reproduce loud, deep frequencies with a lighter weight, you are going to have a lot of benefits to it. And here you are getting that benefit that you have that extremely lightweight, so the motor and your amplifier has to move very little weight to create those 40 hertz frequencies. And also at the same time, there's no crossovers of any kind, so it's not mucking up the sound. You don't have to slap in a DSP to do additional damage to the integrity of the sound. Of course, now I can see a flurry of comments coming in that, no, DSP does improve the sound a lot. Well, then I would recommend try out these speakers, build them for yourself and try them without DSP and with DSP, and you will notice that when you don't need the DSP, then it will just give you another level of improvement. So basically, you have a crappy crossover, you change that crappy passive for DSP, you will hear improvement. And then you ditch the DSP for no needing DSP, you also get another level of improvement in clarity. But then you will say that, okay, these don't meet my needs, I need much higher volume output. Yeah, then you get bigger drivers, even bigger cabinets. You can put in the DSP and it works very well, and you will get it playing much louder and much more powerful than these speakers, but you will totally lose that coherence and that integrity that these speakers are giving you. So I think we are kind of made a full circle with this analysis, and I have shown you that this little speaker really can dig down quite deep. Let's just go back to 1 watt output power. So you need to put them in a smaller room, and then you'll have a nice even mid-bass response, your room filling it up, and of course filling it more in the 40 hertz. So at the 40 hertz region, basically not just 40, but between 50 hertz and what's here, 38 hertz, you will have an extra hump there. So that will make the deep bass, the top of the deep bass pop out, or the very bottom of the mid bass. Well, actually, typically we call 20 hertz to 50 hertz the deep bass, and now we are talking about the upper half of the deep bass, so like between 38 hertz to 50 hertz it's going to get much higher because the room is going to bump it up to like 94 dB or more depending on your room, and that's why it will sound deep and strong. So when you have a church organ or a double bass playing, then it will have a weight to it. And because of this, and the interaction with your room, it will be brought back to level. So the mid bass will not be overtaking the deep bass, it will not steal the show. And that has a secondary effect, that when you do not have the mid bass overbearing the production, you can hear the deep bass much better. And with this speaker LePetit in a small room, you can appreciate deep bass better and with greater clarity than with a bigger loudspeaker in a small room where the mid bass will be totally boomy, out of control. You will need DSP and EQing, all sorts of wizardry to get it under control, and before you know it, you have gone deep down the road of audio hell and lost your way from ever achieving a system that talks to your heart. And this is where this little speaker can be of something that you might never ever heard in your life. If you have not heard it or speakers like that, or something similar, and there's not too many loudspeakers like this, then I would say you are in for a tremendous shock when you hear this kind of presentation and coming and thinking how cheap this project is to build. It's an entry skill level project, and it can get you where not even $5,000 will get you for a modern production loudspeaker. Of course, these demand that you have excellent amplification and on-point sources. So if you have problems with your amplifiers, you are struggling with it, then I don't recommend building them, because they will just show you, throw it in your face how crappy the amplifier, the interconnects, the source is in that system. And then, of course, you will think that it's because the speakers are crappy, because with the other speakers you did not hear that crappiness. And that's because most modern production speakers are designed to help out the amplifiers, help out lacking sources, so that you don't notice how poor quality they are. So thank you for tuning in. I really hope that I gave ideas and how to use WinISD for yourself, how to imagine how these work. Well, I have not gone into that part of the LePetit, how Jean Hiraga used the cabinet itself, why he has these funky things in the front, why did he put that in addition, why did he put felt lining inside, because as you know, in my channel I'm a strong proponent of active cabinets, but in this case Jean Hiraga designed it just the right way, and he did that. Wow, that would be a long thing, that would be a part of another video to make, but this is already my 4th video of this series, and I've been shooting these back to back, even though you will see one pop up in a new day. But for me, this has been a very long evening so far. So please like and subscribe and have fun. Bye bye.